as I learn this software and getting used to this interview style format that I've been doing with my fellow friends that I'm meeting through this spiritual awakening journey. I just finished a conversation with Kat Jordan, and she is the founder of Resilience Rediscovered. We got to talking. I started hitting the record button before, and I didn't make a proper introduction. So I just want to tell you a little bit about her. She is an integrative therapist, energetic healer, and systems-oriented thinker whose work has shaped by a lifelong pursuit of understanding the human capacity to heal. Catherine integrates psychological insight, multidimensional perception, and deep relational attunement. Her role is to translate complexity into coherence, to build language where there was none, to design frameworks where understanding was fragmented, and to hold the integrity of a vision for human and systemic renewal. For over more than 2 decades of experience in mental health, education, and research, Catherine has worked with individuals and families across the full arc of human need, from schools and homes to clinical agencies, residential programs, and private practice. Throughout, she has remained deeply attuned to the patterns that shape human suffering, adaptation, and transformation. You guys, this was an amazing conversation, and you will see what a light she is, and I look forward to learning more about her as well. We're not a collective of pedestal
hierarchy.
Yeah, we don't do that. I just feel like the people that I am aligned with are about empowerment and helping the whole collective rise. It's not us trying to be the thing. I don't know. That's
Yes.
just been my observation from the people that I've met.
That's relieving too, because I think that has been what I'm observing and what I'm experiencing is the challenge. You can hear me okay, right?
Yeah.
Is the challenge of crossing the threshold between an old way of being and a new way of being, right? And we're trying to step out in this leadership role, but we're using the old paradigm of performance, of I know better than you, and here I'm going to teach you, which I think has its value. But I think for a lot of us, and I know in conversations that you and I have had, it really irritates the system. I've really struggled to be visible on social media because I'm trying to further condense myself into a box to fit. And I've never been able to do that. And so why start now, right? So I love the fact of like, yeah, we're human beings. We're clearly, this collective is experiencing quite a profound awakening. And the through line is that if we can just be human and just be ourselves and just show up and show each other respect and care and curiosity and be open, the conversations and what will come out of those conversations will naturally be significant and powerful and wonderful.
Right.
So I love that you're setting us up for that.
Well, I want us all to win. It's not necessarily about, the thing I see too is the corporate structure and cutting out that middleman and us going peer to peer.
Yeah.
I think is part of the work that we're doing. Getting a little bit into how we met was, I think, through Instagram. And I think you saw me respond to Dana Kipple,
Yes.
who we both love, who is the author of A
Love
New
her.
Force, a book all about plasma. I love her book too. And you're like, what's this harmonic egg thing? That thing sounds interesting. So we got into a conversation behind the scenes about the harmonic egg, and we'll talk about that later. But you and I have never really had a sit down conversation outside of the back and forths we had while I was communicating to you about the experiences and then just watching us bounce off each other the things that we're both experiencing through the energies that we're surrounded by. So I would love to hear a little bit about your backstory and then let's go from there.
Awesome. Yeah. So I will first say that it was delightful meeting you in that way. And I love how the universe lines things up in that way. You don't expect them to happen. There was something that you said to me that just kind of like shook my core. You said something, I'm paraphrasing, but you said something to the fact of like, I see you, I recognize frequency, and I can sense and feel what you're bringing. And that immediately put my system at ease because immediately I was like, oh, yes, I can just actually be myself. This person can see clearly what I'm bringing without having to perform, without having to talk about my degrees or talk about my experience. It's really just my presence. So thank you for that because that really was quite an opening for me, and I greatly appreciate that.
I love that your handle or whatever they call it is your identity on Instagram is coherence with cat.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know how important coherence is. And you have a really interesting history.
I do.
Your background is interesting and you understand the power of coherence. So
I do. Thank you. Yes. I didn't discover the word coherence until a couple of years ago, but my existence and the way that I've shown up in the world and the way that I've engaged with other people, I think already carried that signal. I was already working really hard in my life to show up authentically and to engage and find people who matched that without actually having the language or the knowledge or the experience of knowing what that was. And so it's been a really, really long journey. So I'll kind of just give like little timeline jumps here. So I knew at a very young age that I wanted to help people. I was extremely curious about human development and about human experiences, and that really sparked the trajectory of my career as a therapist. So I just really dove right into understanding as much as I could about the nervous system, about neuroscience, about the human body, and about our relationships. And it never really quieted down. In fact, I feel like over the years, it just got louder and louder and louder. And I just was consuming more and more and more and more knowledge, not knowing where it was taking me. This was just really something I was really passionate about. So in 2018, I'm living my life I have a private practice as a therapist. I'm treating people who have primarily trauma, but they come in with anxiety, depression, and through conversations and through the therapeutic process, discover that what these people are actually struggling with is unresolved childhood trauma. That most therapists, which I missed in some regards too in the very beginning, but listening to conversations that people tell me about their relationships with their parents or their siblings or their peers, intimate relationships, platonic relationships, there was an obvious through line of experience that they were having that was really activating their nervous system. And it was disconnection. It was judgment. It was criticism. It was, you can't show up as yourself. You can't show up and speak your truth because it's far too dangerous. You will be ridiculed. You will be criticized. You will be judged. You will be hurt. And so when I started to really unpack that with my clients, not surprisingly, started to wake me up. And I started to recognize some of the things that I was teaching and helping my clients, I needed to learn myself. And I didn't go into therapy and becoming a therapist ever thinking about myself. It was always outward. It was always like, how can I help other people? It never really occurred to me that I would learn the amount of stuff that I have learned. But in December of 2018, my mom had been struggling with skin cancer that had metastasized throughout her whole body. And by December, she had passed. And that absolutely was like the central point of my awakening, the moment where I forgot to grab tissues.
yeah, you can go grab a tissue. We can pause.
Yeah, thanks. The moment I was very fortunate to be with her at the time of her passing. That was an extraordinary gift. as most people say, I was not prepared for that experience, nor was I really interested in preparing, because I had grown up and my family kind of modeled this as we avoid and minimize and we downplay everything until it's a crisis. So even my mom's illness and the inevitability that we knew that she was on her way out, we downplayed it. We didn't really acknowledge it. And so that moment of her passing was a huge shock to my system. And at the time, I didn't even realize how much of a shock wave was occurring. So once I learned more recently about the spiritual realm and spiritual experiences, did I reflect back on being present with her at her passing and recognize what a tremendous gift that was for my soul and for my higher self to be present with her during that transition. It was a gift in all of the ways, but I remember after she passed, I just had this overwhelming feeling of like, I'm different. Like, I'm just different. There was a version of me prior to her passing, and then there's a version of me post, right? And I know I've heard other daughters speak about being motherless and what that does to our system. I'm still unpacking, but it really is quite a shock, feeling untethered. You know, this person brought me into the world. This person, my mom, was my anchor in a lot of ways. She and I were very close, especially spiritually, even though I didn't really know that at the time either. So losing her was hard. It was hard.
I'm really sorry. I didn't realize you had been through all that. So I just want to take a minute and say I'm sorry and thank you for sharing and being vulnerable. Because I think there's a lot of people who have these big events happen in their life, and it does. I see it over and over. It is a catalyst. And
Hugely. Huge. I mean, and you know, I was at this point, I'm trained in understanding the psychology of grief and the psychology of losing a parent. And I was in my late 30s, my mid to late 30s. And so I feel like I was definitely on the younger end of it. Didn't think that I was really ready for that experience, nor I don't think any of us are. But that transformation that happened in those moments changed the trajectory of my life completely. And so I was working, I had a home office, private practice, married, 2 children, in a home we probably couldn't afford, but we were pretending that we could. And after her passing, my coping tanked. You know, I, having grown up again with minimizing, downplaying, coping with distractions, numbing out, that just went through the roof. And at the time, I believed I was coping well. I went back to work 5 days after she passed away. And even my clients were like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine.
fine.
I'm fine." That threw me into a physical health crisis. I had already been dealing with immune disorder complications, and I ended up hospitalized for a period of time. And that led to a conversation with my then husband where he essentially said to me, like, I'm not going to continue to stick by you with this illness. You're kind of on your own. And our relationship was already quite toxic. I shouldn't have been in that marriage in the first place, if I'm being really honest. And so there was a moment post hospitalization. I'm outside. I wanted to share this because this was like another really significant moment. I'm outside. I'm cleaning the pool filters, and he had just been criticizing me and yelling at me, and this was like a normal daily thing where I was tasked to do all of the expectations of caring for the children, caring for the house, caring for food. I was tasked to do everything, and while doing everything was also criticized and judged for how I was doing it. It was never good enough. It was a really unhealthy relationship. And I remember being outside and I'm hosing down the pool filters and I just yell, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to be in this marriage anymore. Just get me out. And at this point, I hadn't really established any real spiritual footing. I was just speaking out loud, not realizing that God listened, that spirit listened, that source absolutely heard the resonance in my system and said, okay, you finally spoke your truth. You finally said what needed to be said. And within a month, he had told me that he met someone at work, fell in love, and wanted a divorce. Within a month. Yes.
I got full body chills.
every time I think about that,
Mm-hmm.
it blows my mind, especially because I was not in a safe environment. I was not in an environment that it was okay for me to say, I'm leaving you and I want the children, or even I want the children half the time. That was not in the realm of possibility. The consequences of rejecting him in that way would have been catastrophic. So for him to have met someone, for him to be the one to say, I want out of this marriage, was also a gift. Absolutely. And that to me was like the real beginning of my healing journey, because I was finally able to escape. I was finally able to escape. And it was only when I was in my own apartment where I had time and space to be by myself did I really start to peel back. How did I get here? How did I end up with this person? How is this my life right now? And then the pandemic hit. So I had even more time on my hands to really allow this process to start to unfold. And I started to deepen my intuition. My intuition always been there. I'd always have a very neurodivergent, hyperceptive, aware being, but I really started to pay attention to it and I really started to listen to it. I started to use that as my mechanism for change. And what I discovered was our power was, if I speak out into the ethers, if I speak out loud a truth that needs to come out, it will propel me forward. It will lead me down a path of more healing and more transformation. And that just happened. It was like a rapid snowball effect in a very short period of time. And then, so like pandemic, I'm healing, I'm still obsessed with human behavior. I'm still really, I want to listen to all the books, and I find Joe Dispenza and I find Lee Harris. These are some like anchored people that really kind of like opened my perspective in such a way that started to make sense of all the things that I knew already. I already knew this stuff in my being. And when I heard other people talk about the universe, or other people talk about frequency, or other people talk about personal development and transformation and what embodied sovereignty looks like, it was just like, yes, 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 yes. I just couldn't stop saying yes. And I'm jumping ahead here. Because of that, I've completely transformed my life, and I swear I'm living what people would easily describe as heaven on earth in my life, in my bubble, in my experience. I am the happiest, rooted, grounded, embodied happiness I've ever been in my entire life. And it's because I went through that transformation. It's because I did all of that work.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm giggling over here because it's making sense now why we connected, because I have a very similar story. And that's how we roll, right? There's these little threads of soul ties that we're like, hey, let's go meet in that next lifetime. I'm going to be here. We're going to go through this thing together. You walked a very similar path, it sounds like to me, early on. And I'll just share real quick because a lot of people don't know my story, but I also empath. You know, I masked. I was the good girl.
Mm-hmm.
I was the people pleaser. I was the overgiver. I was the no boundaries. I was the low self worth, blah, 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 blah. I was in the Air Force in the early 90s, 1992 to 1996. And I was in the dorms. I was eating the chow hall food. I really wanted to just move in with my boyfriend, but we couldn't afford that. So what we did was we got married, and that would give you money for housing and food. So I moved in with him, getting married to him, knowing full well that he was abusive. He had abused me prior to marrying him. The night before we got married, he and I were in a big fight, and my mom said, "You don't have to do this. You don't have to go through with it." And I was like, "Yeah, I do. You're all here." I was in New
Right.
Mexico. My whole family had come down from California. The flowers, the cake, the alcohol, all of it was done. And it was similar in the sense that I was with him for a couple years in a very scary situation, eggshells all the time, and also made my escape, if you will, because he had gone overseas TDY for a year. I don't remember, Korea or Japan or something. I don't remember. And I was watching a scary movie about an abusive, woman. It was like one of those stalker movies.
Mm.
I'm watching it and I'm telling my friend, "Will you come over and watch this with me? I'm scared, but I want to see it." So while we were talking, she said, "He cheated on you when he was in England." And I was like, "Really?" And so I went to the first sergeant and said, "Hey, my husband cheated on me. I want to divorce him." But the chaplain was like, "Oh, no, you should stay married to him." And I was like, "No, we're not doing that." And so I said, "I'm just going to let you know because he might hurt himself. And so I'm going to let him know." And when I called and said, "I know what you did in England," he said, "Who told you?"
Yeah,
And I was
that's all
like,
you needed.
and I started my escape plan. And he had to come home to take care of paperwork and stuff like that. But I have never seen him again in my life. I was complete with my 4-year assignment. And then I moved back to California and stayed with my mom for a while. It's like, interesting. I love that for you. And definitely he was a catalyst for me early on, because the relationship standards that my mom had set were pretty low. And so I would say that after that, I never tolerated external abuse of any kind. That's not to say I was healed.
Right.
I still got into another marriage and I still didn't love myself. And so that turned into being a whole nother codependent situation that I had to also learn how to grow out of and love myself and not expect other people to validate me. And that was the second kind of awakening and then going through that process. So interesting.
Because I've listened to so many of my clients share similar stories, I'm fully convinced that this is a experience that I want to say everyone is experiencing to some
Yeah.
degree. I'm sure that there are some outliers there where someone maybe hasn't experienced that. But especially those who are of female bodies, if I can say that, I think the level of oppression and harm that women have endured for thousands of years is just really, it's ancient, right? And so for us to work against a system designed to keep us oppressed is really, really challenging. So with my ex, I have 2 children. And so we had to enter the court system. We had to enter the family judicial system in order to have shared custody. And I knew that I'd have to have shared custody, that it wasn't something where I would be able to have full custody. That wasn't an option. And I do believe in, with some regard, that it's good for my children to have a relationship with their father. It's good for my children for their own journey to experience whatever they need to experience with whatever soul contract that they have with their father, within reason, right?
Right.
Within the scope of my ability to protect them. But walking into the court system, I was shocked. I was genuinely shocked at how little support there was for women in situations that, and I say women, but I also am fully aware that that is not a female specific thing, that abuse happens regardless of your gender or your sex or whatever. But that the system, especially geared towards ensuring that families stay together, that children have access to both parents, job then the court system was to just make it as neutral as possible, make it as even as possible, and make it as non-problematic as possible. So anytime there was a concern that I had for the well-being of my children, if it didn't meet the severe qualifications of severe abuse, then good luck, right? And so I also had to go through quite a reckoning. My eldest child witnessed a lot of the dynamic between him and I was targeted as the problem. I was targeted as the incompetent, and so my eldest took on that. And so even though I had escaped the relationship, I was still being emotionally and psychologically harmed through my daughter, through my eldest. And I, thankfully, having the wherewithal as a therapist, recognized that this was not at all her fault, that she was an innocent child that was brought up in a really challenging situation and was taking on personalities and learned behavior that was outside of her control and outside of my control. And I think that was the final, most recent kind of full crack of my awakening was, I don't even know if I have the words to articulate it completely, surrendering to my child's journey, surrendering to my child's soul life, and accepting the fact that I would have to endure and boundary up and clarify what was okay and what was accepted as a parent to a child who was engaging in ways with me that would not be appropriate otherwise, right? I don't know if that's making sense, but I'm also trying to not go into too much detail.
Sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
And so, you know, in a lot of ways, I don't have the relationship that I want or wanted with my children because of that relationship. And I've had to come to accept that. And I've had to come to be grateful for the ability to repair and grateful for whatever relationship I do have with my children. And that brought me to the level of grief and pain that even losing my mom hadn't touched. You know, I know you're a parent as well, and so there is a deep wounding that happens when, at least for me, when I can't exercise my love, when I can't exercise and express the fullness of how much I love and appreciate someone because of their own boundaries, because of their own expectations, or because of their own perceptions. Having to contain that in some way or filter it in different ways was where alchemy actually really came on board for me, right?
Yeah.
I had to remove my ego completely from the dynamic so that I could engage with my child from my soul and engage with my child's soul at the soul level without her knowing.
Right.
Without it being a lesson, without it being a teaching of just how I showed up and just how I related to her differently shifted things. And I think that's where my most woke self, my most kind of like wide eyes was like, okay, if I can do this with my own child, if I've seen other people do this in their relationships to heal in such a way that really allows and encourages autonomy, it encourages authenticity, even if it doesn't, work with my system, right? Like if we're butting heads, but she's being her authentic self and I'm being my authentic self, I have to be okay with that. And it's worked.
It's amazing because I say this a lot, but a lot of us are ancient. A lot of us are the generational curse breakers, and a lot of us are cosmic. And this group of people that I tend to find, my peers, are the ones who are breaking the generational stuff, the programming. And I am doing that because I was programmed until I was 50 or so, probably, when I started quitting that and realizing that my kids are actually their own soul here to have an experience. And I have a son with an autoimmune condition that is challenging for him. And it sucks, but also we don't live in that story. We used to butt heads all the time because I was constantly monitoring him. And he's 18 now and he's like, Mom, I'm a grown man. Like, let me make and he makes his own mistakes and he learns from them. And it's a beautiful thing. My younger son it's just different. It's different than it was 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We have a completely beautiful dynamic, and I attribute a lot of that to my harmonic egg, but I also contribute it to the healing work that I've done within myself. And then one of the things that I do for my clients, and it would be interesting, is I do these soul contract readings. And what I found out about my one son is he is a healing soul contract, and that he and I signed up in this life together to heal. And he is a mirror for me. My other son is an ancestral contract. And if I was being I don't know if I want to be totally honest, but I'll tell you. I personally believe my younger son is a reincarnation of my brother. And the reason why is because my brother passed in 2009 and my son was born in 2010, and he's such an old soul. And he loves watching like 80s movies with me.
That's so cool.
And he's gentle, he's quiet, he's really tall, comparatively speaking to the rest of the family. And I'm like, yeah, I don't get weirded out by that, but I'm like, it's a possibility. But I think that we can fragment ourselves. I still think my brother is working with me on the other side.
Yeah.
When I think a piece of him is here with me, I don't know. I'm not. My own knowing knows.
Right.
And it's like the hard part is saying it out loud.
Yeah.
Because it might weird people out. When I do soul contract readings and I'm like, oh, your husband was also your brother in another lifetime. And they're like, what? And I'm like, it was another lifetime.
Right. Yeah.
So you guys signed up for all these different assignments together. You've been spouses, he's been your grandparent, you've been his sister, whatever. And people are like, huh? But also it helps to kind of understand because the abusive ex that I had was a catalyst.
A necessary
soul contract.
one, right? Yes.
Meant to be. And so there was a lot of peace that happened in closing that relationship. I had carried it around for 20 plus years of the frustration of that happening to me. I was a victim of domestic violence, but I don't identify with that story. I think you would agree that we don't identify at that victim mentality. But what I did is I sent him a thank you through the ethers. I just said, thank you for playing the bad guy. You did a really good job. I appreciate it and I forgive you. And I know that you did that for me, so I would never do that again. And he signed up to be a bad guy in my life. And you know what? I don't know what I don't know. We don't know. We can have ideas, we can have theories. And I think being on this journey, you just have to stay really open and curious and be open to all possibilities too.
Yeah.
I'm just curious
Yeah.
because we have been chatting it up, but what are you doing now? How have you transpired your position as, say, a therapist? How do you work with your clients now?
Yeah, let me anchor into that for a second because
Okay.
I am in transition, and I'm recognizing that transitions are, they take a lot longer than I ever expect. And I've gone through, I'm a Scorpio too. So like transformation has just been my blueprint forever. And I've done it time and time and time again. And it still surprises me every time how long it takes for it to be integrated and then grounded and then rebirthed, right? So I recently just closed my private practice for doing exclusively psychotherapy. So over the last year, I've really come to an understanding that the way that the mental health field and the way that the Western medical field treats humans is harmful. And it was really hard for me to stay within that system. And so over the last year, I've been like slowly coming out of the system, no longer taking insurance, really starting to work in this more global perspective of healing that is not the same box that I was trained in, while still carrying the wisdom. This was hard because I also I grew up like there's nothing more than I wanted than to be a therapist, and I take great honor with that title. It's been I won't ever have enough words to describe how impactful and powerful it was to take on that role for my clients and to have that experience with my clients. Um, but I couldn't keep engaging in the same story, the same narrative, and engaging with a system that was maintaining their lack of agency, their lack of sovereignty. It was, you have this symptom, this is a disorder, there is something wrong with you that you're going to have to deal with the rest of your life. Here are some medications that may or may not work, but they also have a lot of side effects that are going to be problematic. And I was just overwhelmed with just story after story after story after story of people being shamed and mistreated for what now I understand is just adaptations. Humans are just, we've just adapted. And what we call a disorder, this is really bold for me to say because I'm still a licensed therapist. What we call a disorder is really just adaptation to an environment that we are not meant to live in and thrive in. And so some of my clients would hear me when I was guiding them towards more autonomy and more authenticity and more nature and more humanness, right? I could get some of them there because everyone has their own journey, and others were like, no, I need to go see my psychiatrist. And living authentically, when you're caring for someone and there's a disconnect between how you care and treat them and how they receive care and treatment, there's a responsibility in making sure if there's a lack of alignment there, you have to shift, you have to change, and you have to move. And so I've had to say goodbye to some clients that I deeply love and respect, because we don't look at it the same way. And through my healing journey after my mom passed, she was a witch, and she was really into Reiki and really into like all the crystals and metaphysical stuff back in the 80s and 90s. So I grew up with that. Yeah. And through those years I was like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Like kind of, but I was so like because I was so neurodivergent, I was so headstrong on like I just want to fit in. I just want to fit in. I just want to fit in. That's so out there. I just want to fit in. Mom was right. I didn't actually want to fit in. I needed to find myself. And following the lessons that she had taught me and going through all of the books that she had, like thousands of books. She had thousands of books. And picking up and playing with her crystals and her necklaces. And I really just started to find truth in that. And so one of the things that she had said to me many years ago was, you know, I think you'd be a really good Reiki practitioner. You should go do Reiki training. And at the time, I was like, I am so sensitive and I am so empathetic. The idea of intentionally putting myself in the energetic field of someone else and doing that was like dangerous. I had no foundation to be able to tolerate and withstand what that kind of work would entail. So that was like when I was in my 20s. So here I'm in my late 30s. My mom has passed. It's the pandemic. I'm doing Reiki training. I love it. I feel like I'm connecting with her more. It's opening up my own channels of connection with the divine. And so over this last year, circling back around, where I'm really reckoning with, okay, I want to continue to heal people. I want to continue to treat people. I want to continue to help people feel better. I had to bring in this Reiki, right? And that again, I can't fit Reiki into the therapeutic box as the therapist is defined right now. So I had to really shove that system aside and kind of just branch out on my own. And this is the transition I'm in. So last week, I had my last psychotherapy only sessions. And then the very next day, I had a full day of what I'm calling integrative healing sessions with clients, where I incorporate breath work and nervous system regulation and frequency healing and Reiki and all the stuff. So I get to just bring all of my wisdom, all of my knowledge to somebody who's really receptive to it, right? If you're accepting of some Reiki treatment, you're kind of open. And that day alone, I had 3 clients. That day alone just cracked me wide open of like, yes, this is exactly what I am meant to do on the individual level, is to offer this type of unique healing. But I also know that that is not my full mission. It's kind of like what I do day to day or every couple of days with clients one-on-one. My big mission, what I really want to do, is bring everything that you and I are talking about, everything that you and I have shared in this conversation and in previous conversations that we've had, to the collective and expand it. We have clarity and understanding on how human systems can heal and what technologies are effective and what technologies are now available. I just see expanding out to families, to communities, to cities, right? Like when you work, sorry, I'm like jumping. I get really excited.
It's
I
okay.
jump all
It's
over the
okay. I
place.
know. And most of us are a little ADHD anyway. Whatever.
So my background as a therapist is that I studied systems. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and that specific training is everything is a system, everything is relational, right? So when I think about healing my individual clients, I'm simultaneously thinking about how that's going to impact their relationships, how that's going to impact their families, and how their families are going to impact communities. I always see that rippling effect. So I know that while I'm doing this individual work, I myself also have a rippling effect of more work that I want to do, of bringing that mission out. And I haven't yet figured out exactly what that container looks like. And so I've been really leaning in on I just trust and I just surrender, and whatever opportunities come my way, I'm going to say yes to if my intuition and my gut says yes, and see what happens, because I know that I'm not alone. I know that there is a lot of us who are ready for this kind of information to become mainstream so that we can see what we know in our hearts and in our souls to be true, is that we have the capacity to live peacefully. We have the capacity to live in communities and in families that allow each other to have sovereignty and allow each other to have agency and allow each other to live authentically. And when we do that, we organize in such a way that becomes coherent, right? So I have this image of when each individual person lives fully authentically in themselves, they have natural talents and strengths, right? They just become an embodied version of the best of themselves. And we all have skills. And so when that comes online and we work cohesively together with whatever those skills are, whatever you need in that community, we become coherent. And that's what lights me up. That's what really, really excites me, is expanding this individual knowledge outward to how communities can actually not just survive through whatever it is that we're going through right now, but thrive and live really fulfilling lives. So that's what my
I agree. It feels, I feel like, as someone who came from a lot of chaos early on in my awakening with the 2020 and all the route that I took was the conspiracy theory route. And I think that was in part because I was a veteran. So I was like a patriot and I was like, ooh, you know. But I also am somebody who my entire life has been very much I'm not one thing. I'm not one thing. This aspect of what we're doing here fulfills that little part of me that went to UNR to be a journalist. And 2 years into the journalism program, I was like, I can't do, no, it's ugly out there. It's depressing. And I felt like the stories that the news chases are, I wanted to be the roving reporter that was going to all the fun events. Look at what's happening this weekend. Well, it takes a certain person to get that assignment. And I was going to probably end up the one who was going and covering the depressing stories. And I didn't want to do that. So I switched and I got a degree in art. And I decided I would study graphic design. And so I've always done my own marketing. I've always created my own logos. I've always freelanced and kind of learned the back end of the marketing thing. And so it's funny how we as individuals had all these experiences early on in our life that have basically set us up to, I think, become a template for doing life a different way. And a lot of the practitioners that I talk to, because I work with a lot of people who are like you, who are experiencing all these extremely amazing downloads and this blissful state because you're doing the healing work and all of that, and you're using all these different tools and bringing them into your clients as an offering. And I think that I don't promote my harmonic egg as much as maybe the 3D would tell me I should.
Right.
You know, like sell, 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 sell. And I'm like, I don't want to just be known as the harmonic egg person. That is a tool and that is one way to get there. And if you're galactic, it's going to be awesome. And that might be a good segue into talking about your experience, because I offered to send you my 6 week remote clearing as an offering to get your feedback. And I'd love to hear how it went for you.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It is pebbled with a lot of different experience that I now understand was the exact experiences that I needed to be at this point in my life. Like it all just kind of like came together, it makes sense. And I like that you're also emphasizing how like we're not just one thing. We're, you know, like I'm not just a Reiki practitioner. I'm not just a therapist. Like I'm a multidimensional person who has a ton of creative ideas just bursting at the seams. I just need containers. I need people, I need community to be able to exercise these ideas outward. And I think that's what drew me to you also, was like this entrepreneur leadership, strong energy that you brought forth of like, yes, this is what I am doing, and this is what I know is going to work, and this is what I'm offering, and I don't know where else it's going to go, but I trust it. Because I mean, you would mention that, you would say that to me in a message, and I'd be like, yes, that's exactly right, that's where I'm at. And so it's really exciting to share that with other people, because I don't have that in my circle, right? I'm not hanging out with too many 5D people right now at the moment. And so when you introduced the harmonic egg, first off, I was just like beyond thrilled at the opportunity and so grateful and appreciative of your gift. It is a true, 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 true gift. And I remember I'm laughing because there were so many times where I would give you back the feedback of like, okay, things are absolute chaos right now. It's actually a little unnerving and destabilizing, but I know that this is for the good, right? I had gone through enough transformations that I knew that if things were breaking, if things weren't working, if I was running into barriers or if there was more chaos going on in my life, that there was purpose behind it, and to not fear it and to not deny it. I think you had even said, do you want me to pull back? Do you want me to not? And I was like, no, like, please keep the frequency coming. Let the harmonic egg do its magic. I accept and I receive and I trust. I know I haven't fully seen the results of that yet because I know the process takes a while. But so far, just in the last couple of months, I have maintained a certain level of stability, clarity, assurance, confidence, power. I could keep going, that I had never experienced before. It was as if, well, I know this now, not as if. It's the, maybe you can do a better job describing the science behind it, but it's
Coherence.
yeah, it's coherence. It is. It is the removal of the blockages. It is the removal of the things that are interfering that I don't necessarily know are there, that I don't necessarily see, sense, or feel, even with my hypersensitive body that's around me, that's still actually interfering with my ability to be coherent. And when you brought it to the home, was really when things went and kind of exploded, but not in a way that was bad. It was overwhelming and it was chaotic, but nothing terrible happened. I say that and I'm like, subjectively, some of it was terrible. But everyone that I love is still present. And that to me was what, matters. But there's a current in my system now. There is a current in my home now that feels like flow, that I am experiencing as flow. And I want to emphasize one other thing too, because I think this is something that I see often with my clients that should always be named. When you're in coherence and when you're in flow, it is not perpetual. There are times when you dip into a period of reworking whatever still needs to come through the system, right? We're never not growing. We're never not evolving. We're never not transforming. And so even though I'm at this like really intense vibrational space of coherence, my system is still requiring times where it needs to come back down and I need to grieve, or I need to do like a mass cleaning, or I need to delete all of the text messages in my phone. There is work that still has to happen to continually keep this experience on the trajectory that I see where it's going.
Right.
Yeah.
And okay, so that's awesome. And I love that you feel it. And I feel like the people who have been doing the work and who are open to receive the magic. And I could see that in you. And what I see is maybe somebody who is their channel is 101.1 on the radio, but they're at 100. There's a little bit of static on the radio dial, and I feel like what the egg does is it goes in and it clears that energetic debris out.
Yeah.
And then when I'm sending it to the home, it's assisting the whole house, the land, the plants, the people, the animals. And I've had clients tell me that their kids quit fighting. The big brother quit picking on the little sister, and that the plants and the wildlife and stuff are going off. So I know it it's effective, and I've sent it to my kids, and my son's warts went away. And my other son, he's way more calm than he used to be, like just calm, and it's nice. So I love hearing your feedback, and I love knowing that it helped you. And I, that is one of the reasons why I came up with my monthly offering that is the $44 a month, where it's just like you get the clearing on a regular basis just to keep the flow.
Yeah.
And that's something that I was really committed to as far as being able to help the masses. That's my lowest priced offering, but also knowing that this work can go anywhere in the world, and I'm the one who's going to break the mold to do it.
Yeah.
Um, and it might be to my detriment. I don't know. Not there yet.
Let's not.
Right.
Right. I mean, whatever transformation still is in the works for your journey. Yes. I want to add, I'm glad that you mentioned your children, because the shifts and changes that I saw, as I mentioned earlier, my eldest and I, our personalities clash, and we have some hard history that kind of resurfaces every once in a while, and we're both doing work. And the clearing, I want to say again, like when you started with the house was when I saw it in them. Like we know that, like, if I'm doing work and I'm becoming coherent and I'm emanating out a healthier frequency, yes, it's going to have an impact on the people that are around me. And I saw little glimmers of that. But when you did the house clearing was when, like, that seemed to just, like, I just keep imagining like a shockwave running through the home of just like clearing it. And I can't, the number of hugs, the number of I love yous, the number of thank yous and appreciations. My cooking is better, and they're complimenting me on my cooking. Like I almost want to write down like a laundry list of experiences that I'm having, that when I say I'm living heaven on earth, it is my heaven on earth. I am being honored and respected and loved and cherished and cared for by the people that I live with. And that was never the case for me for the vast, up until the age of 37. I didn't experience that safety, and I have that now. And it feels grounded. It's not a fleeting moment like we're on vacation and everyone happens to be in a good mood, right? Like, it's not like we just went shopping and she's happy. It is a grounded, rooted feeling of our energies coming back in alignment with health, in all sense of the ways. Health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's little, I draw the conclusion. My guide showed me one morning in meditation. They said, you've got to keep your auric field like calm. And they showed me a smooth auric field. And they said, imagine kayaking on Lake Tahoe on a calm day, and how nice and flowy, and you can just kind of glide across the water. And they said, when you've got all this interference in your aura, it's like kayaking on a day that's wavy and windy, and your arms are tired, and it's just so hard. And so they said, keep your shit calm. Like, keep it calm. If I start to feel tension in my body, I start dancing, I start moving. I'll go outside and do a walk. I'll go hug a tree. I'll go ground. I'll do something to take my mind off whatever that disruption feels like coming out of my body, that anxiousness, but it's usually in my solar plexus, in my gut, that I'm like, and then having the awareness that it's there, and then the tools to work through that. And so I'm sure you help your clients with that. I know I help my clients with that, because as practitioners, we can't be with them every day, right?
Yeah.
And just like you and I have had to learn the tools to regulate ourselves as empaths and put our protective bubble up when we're out in high touch areas with a lot of people, I know how to do that. And I know how to cleanse my energy when I'm done. But now I'm like playing with the 5D. I just call it in before I go in the store, and it is. I go into Costco, and people literally will stop their cart and go, "Oh, go ahead." And people will open doors. People are smiling. People are staring. It's like,
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
you experience that.
Yes. In fact, there were some times where I was like, I'm not sure I want to go out in public right now because I don't want to be looked at. And not because I have an issue with being looked at. It's just, it's a lot sometimes. When you raise your vibration to the level that we're at, it is like I can feel my energy radiating. I can't, even when I try to like bring it in a little bit when I'm at the store, it's still really wide. It's still really bright. And then the the feedback that I'm getting from strangers is not harmful. Even those that are looking,
Yes.
they might look and they're like perplexed, like what is special about this person? I don't know why I'm looking at them. They're just an average person, or they're extremely friendly, or they're really kind, or we just strike up a conversation. This is my favorite part. So, and I think this is a really important thing that I want to emphasize. Because of my conditioning, because of how I was raised, because of how I experienced the world, I have carried for a really long time fear of other people. And I know there's billions of us who carry that same fear. And when you get to a certain level of sovereignty and radiance, you still have to challenge that mind, that brain part, that nervous system part that says there's something here to be scared of. But when I challenge that and I go out anyway, or if I say hello to that person who is smiling at me, there's magic that happens in those moments. I get synchronicities. They tell me something that clicks in my mind that I later use that kind of also propels me, or I'm gifting them with something, right? They might say something that I get a drop in my mind that says, oh, I want to tell them this thing. I don't know why I'm telling them this thing, but I'm feeling pulled to say this thing. And when I say it and you see the look on their face, like, oh, like this is the magic that I think we're really talking about when we're talking about connecting, and connecting with not just people that we know, but with people who are complete strangers. Like, how many times in your life, and to anyone who's listening, who's ever experienced a stranger or an acquaintance say something to them that just wakes them up a little bit, that gives them a piece of nugget or gives them something that they didn't have, that they didn't know that they needed, that changes the trajectory of what they're thinking or feeling or doing? I want to be that conduit for people. I've had other people be that conduit for me, and no one that you would think is special, but because we are one, and because we are unity, and because we are all part of the same fabric, those interactions actually carry a tremendous amount of magic in them that I'm excited for now. I had a gentleman whose car broke down in front of our house yesterday. And I'm home, I've got 3 kids, and it's already chaotic because it's around dinner time and I'm behind dinner, right? And my initial thought is, oh, there's a stranger at my house. I want to close in, pretend we're not here. And I'm like, no, no, no. I step out. And it was a delightful experience because this person was scared. This person was worried. This person was apprehensive of like being a problem to me because their car broke down in my yard. And I was able to give them the gift of reassurance that like, no, you are no problem. Let me give you some water. It's a hot day. And knowing that just that little exchange was meaningful excites me. Actually, I'm like really feeling into
Yeah.
this right now. Like it really excites me. Like I just want to go bump into a bunch of strangers just to have the experience of there is a lot of love. There
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of respect. And there is a lot of desire for connection that doesn't have to be just with your partner. That doesn't just have to be with your children. That really can exist with strangers.
Agree. And I've been getting a similar message,
Mm.
and that is that, first of all, I know this is not a brag that we're playing with the 5D because we've been,
We've worked hard for it.
doing the work. But the thing is, I think we also know that we don't stay there because we have to also interact with the 3D. We have to interact with humanity. And I think when we're at this level of the game, I'm almost playing with it like I'm just going to be an earth angel. I'm
Yeah.
going to, I'm going to help people if it looks like they need a hand. I'm going to hold a door. I stopped traffic on the highway the other day trying to save a little sheep that was running down the road. And I probably could have been, I'm protected. So I knew that it was safe, but I put on my hazards. The whole freeway came to a stop for this little sheep. And I wasn't able to grab it. I was in flip flops, but I bet someone did. And when I left the scene, I was about to get off the freeway and I saw the trailer and the truck that was pulled over to the side of the road. And I was able to say, stay here. And I'm pretty sure because there's no cars behind me for at least 5-10 minutes, your sheep is going to be okay. I'm pretty sure they're working on a rescue mission. So stay here. There's going to be an update or you're going to get your sheep back. And they were like, oh my God, thank you so much. But then I had to get off the freeway. But if they would have been parked up a little bit further, that interaction would have never happened.
Right.
Those people would have never known if they should get off the road, circle back, go try, And it was just like this divine timing moment.
Yes.
That I felt like, yeah, in the past, I wouldn't have pulled over for a sheep. I would have said, this is dangerous to pull over on the side of the highway. This is not safe. And then my heart was just like, nope, you're doing it. It had a little leash on it, a little muzzle thing and a leash. And I knew it was somebody's baby.
Yeah.
And so that's that divine timing of just being out in the world. And thank you for being a lighthouse. Thank you for taking time to talk to me today. It's such a pleasure hearing your story and the work that you're doing and the way that you are being this beautiful matriarch for your family. You're a ripple. I think all of us who are doing the work are a ripple.
Yeah.
And we're just, the way that I see it is the more crisscross, the more we ripple out the light, we snuff out the dark. But, it's all polarity here on this planet. So we have the light and the dark, and it's how we learn to use it and learn from it and grow and expand. How can people find you?
My Instagram handle is coherence with cat with a K-A-T. And I have a website called Resilience Rediscovered.com, all one word. That is my current container for people who want to reach out to me. I have a variety of opportunities. I have a variety of different pathways for people to connect with me to see what opportunities we come up with. I'm at a point in my life where I'm ready to accept and review and meet people and see what unfolds, all with the undercurrent of teaching and educating and healing the collective in a way that brings more coherence, just all around more coherence in all ways. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
you're
for
welcome.
doing the work. Thank you for being here today. And I look forward to working with you. Maybe we collaborate more in the future. And, it's exciting times. I think that we are forerunners, entrepreneurs we are working against a system that supports people who have the insurance and who prescribe the medications and whatnot. And I think that there are a bunch of us who know that the childhood conditioning, the trapped emotions, the energetic incoherence of just being in the world affects us. And if we can clear out of that and tune out the noise and tune out the toxins and make better choices that we can. Rinse, clean out the vessel, our dense carbon based vessel, and become our crystalline light bodies that we've always been meant to be. So
I love it. I love it. I'm so excited that this is happening. I am so excited that we are catching the same wave, right? That there is a collective out there of us who see this clearly, who understand how to get others there and are eager and happy to be of service, you know?
yeah.
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 So thank you for being a
Okay.
part of it.
Thank you. Don't hang up. I'm going to tie up the recording. Thank you.